So we have about what, 20, 21 people on the Zoom. I think we have more coming, but time is precious. So I will ask everyone to please mute your microphone so that we can so that we don't have any disturbances while Luke Sander explained to us the changes that are forthcoming to the GLC offerings effective November 1st. So at the end, we're having a Q&A session for anyone that has any questions. Make sure you write them down so that we can have ample time after he's done to go over any specific questions you may have regarding GLC. So, Luke, I don't know if I'm sure there may be one or two or a few agents that probably have not seen your face before, but I know you're on casual mode. But thank you for taking the time to be here with us and to update us on those changes forthcoming. So the floor is yours. Take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you. Before I jump in, I'm not sure if this will even show, so maybe it won't look so good, but there's my beautiful wife and beautiful daughter. Yes, she's got her all little headbands, and of course Rhiannon's good with all the fashion for the baby and those little round sunglasses too. So just a little bit of extra show and tell there. And welcome on also to Luce, who's just joining us. We're just getting started with the updates, so you're coming in at the perfect time. Just going to make sure that everybody's muted. So fantastic. Yes. And thank you all for taking time out of the evening to be on this meeting. We all have many irons in the fire and are doing many things. And so this is very valuable. And with the information I'll communicate, I promise you that it'll be valuable to you as we move forward with this GLC opportunity. GLC has been and continues to be very, very successful for us. There's a lot of positive momentum and growth in the GLC portfolio. So looking into the future, why we're having this meeting now, and we're discussing some of the changes that are made to the loan options. To give that brief context before I jump into that, basically on an annual basis, more or less, we like to revisit with a product like GLC. We revisit the loan options, and we're always aiming to squeeze the most value to the client, to the lender, and to give the most competitive kind of option that is that we can provide. And also, that is always within the context of viability. So we want GLC to be an offering, the way it's structured, to be available indefinitely into the future. And for that to be the case, it has to be competitive and attractive to the lenders, but also, of course, viable for GLC. So we're always engaged in doing that balancing act on both sides. So with these updated loan options, which will, after November 1st, be the new set of loan options, the new suite of offerings that we have available, know that we're always, whenever we take a little, we're always looking to give, and all things being equal, we're trying to give more than we take when it comes to what we're providing the lender and the client. So there be some changes that are very minor and a few that are a little bit larger. And what I'll go ahead and do is, so that we have a helpful visual aid for what I'll be saying, but I encourage you to take notes as well on your end. And we will be updating all of the presentation materials, the slide deck, the recording. My aim is to have the new slide deck, the new PowerPoint, the new recording available by the beginning of next week. So as we kind of transition from the current set of loan options into the new set, that you will be able to have those resources on hand and available so that you can begin with your prospective clients having those kind of conversations with all of those tools available. So I'm going to share my screen now and just kind of walk us through some of the changes to the loan options. So I whipped this up together just right before the call. So let us, it is very simplified, but it gets the information across. So I'm going to zoom in here. So we're looking at just one loan option at a time. No getting distracted. Don't worry, we'll cover everything. So first and foremost is something entirely new. So we had many conversations with the agent team leaders and a lot of feedback that was filtered up to us, and it was understood that there's a value add for the clients that we have and that you serve to, if possible, bring on a loan option even that was shorter than the 12-month, the 1 year option, which up until now has been the shortest option available. So after taking that into consideration and having that conversation with GLC, we have as one of our new loan options a shorter duration than has ever been offered before. And it has the following structure. It is a 6-month loan option. Now, the design of this is to basically be a foot in the door for clients. This is not the most efficient from GLC's perspective. So how this is structured is, and how to represent this is as essentially a kind of an introductory offer. So this is for a new client that is perhaps looking to test the waters, looking to kind of dip their toe into the water and see how this experience is, and they want to do that within a short time horizon. They want to just sort of kind of have a little experiment and kind of see how that works. So this is a 6-month loan option. Again, it is promotional option for new clients only. It is not available for renewal. So the idea is, again, this is kind of the foot in the door, and then from there, the client can renew into a different loan option, or they can not renew. But this particular option is not available for renewal. And if it's an existing client that's already on, well, then they fall into that category as well. So this is just for new clients. This has a 5% deferred interest payment. So this pays out at the maturity of the loan, which is on the 6th month, and pays out at 5%. So that's very competitive for only a 6-month term. That's basically double of what like a lot of you might see with a CD or something like that, 4.5%, 5% maybe annually. So strong and competitive for a very short time commitment. And in terms of the agent referral fee structure and some of the other aspects of this option, obviously because this is such a short option and kind of a promotional option, or an introductory option rather, this option pays out a referral fee percentage that will be 50% of the standard referral fee percentage that you receive. So because it's just so short and obviously coming up for renewal and maturity rather quickly, this pays out that 50% of what would be your standard referral fee. Also, and this was a question that came up, so I wanted to clarify it here up front, that the grace period return for this option is a little bit more simplified compared to the other options, and I can review and revisit that if anyone needs a clarification during the Q&A on how the grace period works for the other loan options. But this is basically a simple 30-day grace period. So they receive that 5% interest on their principal on the maturity, so right at that 6-month mark, and then there is up to that 30-day window for the return of principal for the grace period, no more than that. The other loan options have kind of an extension structure, but given that this is such a short duration and it kind of defeats the purpose to have a very long grace period on a short option, this just has that 30-day window for that return of principal. So that is the new option, and kind of not seen before, as a nice introductory foot in the door for clients. And the design of that, kind of the intention behind that, again, is as a segue. I mean, if they don't want to renew, that's of course fine, but as a segue to other kinds of loan options to develop a comfort level with GLC. So moving on from that, the next option is the new 12-month. And like I said, where we take a little, we want to see if we can give at least as much or even more in another area. So bear with me as I touch on this option, and I'm going to relate it to the next option. The new 12-month option is still cash flowing, still pays out on the quarterly basis, and it still pays out that 3% fixed quarterly interest payment for an effective annual interest of 12%. The difference with this option is that there is no longer, compared to what we've seen before, a bonus at maturity. The old 12-month option had a 2% bonus at maturity. So this is 3% cash flow per quarter for a total of 12% effective annual, no bonus at maturity, 12-month contract. Fairly straightforward on that front, exactly like the other one, except the no 2% bonus. The reason for that relates into the next option. So you can kind of see both of these side by side here. This new option that we have, it's sort of a kind of a middling duration, is an 18-month option. So 6 additional months, a year and a half total. But for that, we work in a little bit more oomph and a little bit more bang for the buck when it comes to the bonus part of that. So this has that 3% quarterly cash flow, just like the 12% has, but there's, again, thinking of this from all perspectives, from GLC's perspective, that window, the additional 6 months, is has a real high premium and a high value add for GLC in terms of their efficiency. So this option therefore pays out a sorry, I'm going to double check if we can, everybody, that you're muted. Otherwise, I will have to mute you myself, not because I don't like you, but just because we're catching some background noise. So perfect. So this option pays out, in addition to the 3% quarterly cash flow, a 4% bonus at maturity, which in terms of scaling and in terms of the bang for buck, the effective annual interest is superior to the 2% over the 12 month. If that scaled directly, then you'd have a 24 month that had a 4%, but this is an 18 month that has a 4%. So for the sake of that additional 6 months, the client is getting an additional 4% interest total that is paid out at the maturity, so that you can have a helpful point of reference and a comparison. I ran the numbers and the math. And so whereas the 12 month has a 12% effective annual interest, the 18 month has a 14.666 repeating effective annual interest. So that's sort of the spread in terms of the additional value there. Or again, because this falls in at a year and a half, not evenly on a year, that's a 22% total return by the maturity, by the 18th month. So it's other, two different ways of looking at it. So that is our new 18-month option. So we kind of have a little bit of more nuance when it comes to those cash flowing options. Now, the next option beyond that is a new 36-month option. So this is what I'm calling accelerated cash flow. I'm not sure if we'll end up with a different name on the presentation slides, but this 36-month option is designed for the sake of the longer contract, and generally speaking, the longer the contract, the more efficient GLC can be with the funds, and therefore, of course, the more the more room we have to play with how what kind of interest return we can give the lender, and also how we package that. So this 36-month option, I'm calling the accelerated cash flow, because this also pays out on a quarterly basis, except instead of 3%, there is basically a 33% upgrade on the quarterly cash flow. It goes from 3% all the way to 4%. So the client is receiving a 4% quarterly interest payment throughout the entire duration of the loan option. There's no bonus at maturity. And again, the way to think of this is really that bonus is really being front loaded to the client. They're receiving an additional 1% compared to the other cash flowing options every single quarter. So that translates to, again, an effective annual interest of 16%, which, again, you compare it to kind of see the scaling of these options. You have the 12-month has a 12%, 18-month has a 14.66. This has a 16%. But once again, that doesn't even cover the full value, because this is being, as I would say, front loading the interest increase, because the client's getting that in the quarterly payments. They don't have to wait till the maturity for an additional bonus. So this is, I didn't put it on the Word document here, but basically by the maturity of the loan, this represents a total of a 48% total interest return by the maturity of the loan. But again, a lot of that value coming from the fact that they're getting that in those quarterly installments at that accelerated 4% rate. So the last final option, if you count the introductory 6 month, this is a total of 5 different loan options. The last option is, and I will preface this by saying it once again, we are always trying to make the most viable option given the current conditions of the markets and everything else at the time, is our new deferred option. So we are aware that the prior option was at the 36-month duration, 36 months, double your principal. This option is basically the same structure, but within a 48-month structure. So that is translates to a 25% effective annual interest, which of course scales, very nicely compared to these other options. Obviously, 25% effective annual, doubling your principal in 4 years. It's still very strong and very competitive. Does this mean that the 36-month double your principal is never going to return? Not necessarily by any means. Again, we review this on an annual basis, and there's always changing factors. So when we review this again next year, there's very much a potential that 36-month double your principal or something very close to that may be something that's on the table. So that's, this is always kind of the thing that we're offering. We don't want to throw too many curveballs. And where we make changes, we always want to make them as much as possible in the favor of the lender, of course, for a variety of reasons. So the new deferred double your principal option is at the 48-month duration, and again, paid out as a single lump sum interest payment at maturity, no cash flow on this option. That summarizes the 5 different new loan options. And just as a note on the transition, as of November 1st, we're phasing into these options. We want in every way to support our agent teams, and so the purpose of this is not to be draconian and to make an imposition on you when you are, as we very well know, in the middle of client conversations with prospective clients and existing clients and so forth. So how we are arranging this is that any piece of business that is submitted into the pipeline, so via an intake form, under the old set of options, will be honored so long as that is submitted prior to November 1st. Now, there's a caveat there to where if you submit it prior to November 1st, and this is something that doesn't fund for several months down the line, well, that's not what that kind of grace is designed for. So, ideally we're looking at kind of within several weeks of the 1st of November that would be funded. I know, sometimes we're dealing with retirement account funds and that takes time to move. So, we're taking all those factors into consideration, but, that's the purpose of it. So anything submitted into the pipeline for business by the 1st of November under the old set of loan options will still be honored and still be available, but it must be put into the pipeline at least by that time with a reasonable expectation that it will be, business will be, funds will be wired, the document will be signed, etc., within a reasonable time frame after that. And then post that, we'll have the new set of options available. The second update or second note that I will make is that is on renewals. So coming into renewals, as some of us or many of us are looking forward to clients that have that. This is what the renewal structure will look like for the GLC options. Renewals will be 80% of your standard referral percentage. So you have a client that is renewing, they're coming up on the maturity of their contract, they're deciding to renew. The renewal fee or the referral fee that you will receive for that renewal will be 80% of your standard referral fee percentage, with the exception, again, as we mentioned before, that GLC, it can be the most efficient with the funding with longer duration contracts. And so GLC provides these options, but they're the bread and butter where they work best is with longer durations. So if a contract is renewing from a shorter duration into a longer duration contract, then that referral will be 100%. Basically, it will be your standard referral fee percentage on that longer duration contract. So when it comes to renewals, that is how that plays out. Now, of course, we already looked at the 6-month option, and the 6-month option is the exception when it comes to the new money referral. That's going to be at 50%. And also, of course, I'll say that, if you have a client that is renewing $100,000 contract and they want to renew but put more money in, let's say they want to make that $150,000, then anything that is new money, even if it's renewing into the same or even maybe a shorter duration, then that new money is that new money amount is regarded as new money. So that you'd basically receive the full referral on that new money, and then that would be 80% on the money that's being rolled over or carried over from the prior contract, essentially. So that's pretty much the basics for when it comes to these upcoming renewals on contracts. I am going to pause and then restart my screen share because there's one more important point to note, and then pretty much I think we can transition into Q&A. is some of you, most of you, I think, are aware. Not all of you. We want to make sure this is fully disseminated to all the members of the teams, and we're in more routine communication with some of you more than others. So this is a great opportunity on this call to touch in on this. And I'm going to make this a little bit larger so we can see it. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to reshare my screen. There's a change to the protocol when it comes to completing business with a client. And this is important because moving on a go-forward basis, this is going to be the protocol for how you get your referral fee. So if you don't do this step, then you're not going to receive your referral fee, even if the account is funded. And as I explained it, the point is not to hold anything up unnecessarily, but there's a good reason for having this be part of the step in closing the business. So as I pull up my screen share again, which one here? I think it was this. Perfect. Okay, so what I have here is this is just from the Google Drive, which if all of you have access to. If you don't, then talk to your upline or get a hold of Ricardo. We'll make sure you have access to this Google Drive folder. But this has all the materials for GLC, all the presentation materials, templates of the loan documents, and so forth, and everything. One of those documents is what we're looking at right here. And this has basically the intake form links. So this is, most of these we're used to for when you're at the beginning of the process and you're submitting business into the pipeline. So you have GLC cash, you have GLC qualified via Provident, you have GLC qualified funds, and if someone already has a self-directed IRA with a different custodian, we're not going to force them to move. So that is what this form is for. But then you see one down here at the end. Maybe this is not one that you have seen before, and it says wire sent. What does this refer to? Well, this is actually at the very tail end of the process. This is another intake to submit that is for when the account is the client has finished wiring their funds. So if I let's see, pause and then pull back my screen share again, make sure I have the right window open, because I'm going to just take us over to, I probably could have actually just clicked on the link. But let's see here for GLC docs. There we go. For where that what that link takes you to and what that looks like when you see that, that's going to be this right here. Yeah, I probably could have just clicked on it. So very simple, extremely simple. So this is not a lot of extra steps. You just have to remember to do it, because what this is for is simply putting the client's name in here. And when there's a proof of wire section and it's a file upload section. All you need to do for this in one form or another, and probably the easiest way to do it, is to instruct the client when they send the wire, when they submit the wire of the funds to their bank, or usually they're doing that in person at their bank, is to instruct the client simply to take a picture of that transaction receipt, or that statement that the bank will provide for confirming that the funds are going out, the wire is going out. There are other ways that it can be done. If they want to pull up their bank statement and show that there, they could take a screenshot of that or something too. Regardless, it's simply just a little photo or image showing that the wire was sent. And the reason why we're doing this is because we had a few instances of situations where an agent would communicate to us that yes, the client has wired the funds, and we didn't have this protocol in place. And so we said, great, they've wired the funds, fantastic, we have the signed MOI, it's been signed, countersigned, funds have been wired, so let's get that referral fee statement together. And then in a few cases those referral fees actually went out. And then it was discovered after that fact that, the client had not yet wired the funds, and there was some breakdown in the communication. That is the kind of thing that we want to make sure we avoid, and that everything follows that proper order, that referral fees aren't going out until that piece of business, that contract is funded, that piece of business is closed. So in this case, this ensures that when this intake form is submitted, that we have proof that the funds have been wired, and then that referral fee process can get started right away, and we're not just relying on word of mouth, even though 98-99% of the time in those cases that process would work just fine. It's for these situations where we don't want things to fall through the cracks. And there could be a situation where a client, decided not to fund at the last minute, and then that referral fee went out. Those are the kinds of things we don't want to have to backtrack on and so on. So that is an important note, and that is, again, tied to until this form comes into the back office, and we see this as part of the completed documentation of the MOI and so on, then the referral fee moving forward won't be able to be issued. So make sure that you do remember this as a part of the process. And it is, again, very simple as putting the client's name and uploading a JPEG or whatever it might be of that confirmation of wire being sent. So with that, those cover the updates, is basically the changes to the loan option, the renewal referral structure, and the wire confirmation aspect with that intake link. And that's right on the Google Drive, just below all those other intake links. And the last quick thing I'll say, because I do want to get to questions, that's the most important, is just that with new presentation materials coming out and everything else, we're going to aim to make sure that we have the best and latest of updates and progress in the portfolio. Many of you know the asset in Jakarta is one we've been highlighting on the presentations. The last update we've had from the developer is that has been set for a soft open sometime in this month. So we're speaking with them to make sure we have the latest kind of news on that, because that's a great thing to highlight, as that is, when that is opened, that's now a new operational business and part of the portfolio. That's great, as well as some of the other updates on other assets. We've mentioned Pompano Beach, which is a new developmental asset that GLC acquired end of June, beginning of July. And there is another asset that has now gone into the due diligence period. So that's a 60-day period, which is located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's another developmental asset. So some great US acquisitions. GLC is aiming to have 3 of those total by the end of the year. So Pompano Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and there's a few other candidates for that third, to kind of have these kind of moderate-sized developmental projects. The Pompano Beach is, for those who don't know, is poised and set to be developed as a 65-unit luxury apartment complex with, I believe, a commercial element at the street level. And I'd have to get the specifics on Fort Lauderdale. So all that to say, good progress in Indonesia, good progress in the continental US, and that just goes to more diversification in the portfolio, ultimately more collateral for the lenders. So good for GLC and good for the clients too. So with that being said, I turn back to you, Ricardo, or in however you want to see it, we can open it up to questions as you like.
Thank you, Luke. Just for everyone to understand, you will be developing those videos, or the video educational presentation that we had before. You're going to be developing that fairly soon. When do you estimate that you will have the new educational presentation ready?
Aim is by beginning or early next week. Basically the kind, we know what the loan options are, and we know those changes to make. We just want to make sure that we're, as we reach out to GLC, that we have the latest information on some of those assets that are kind of in development and moving forward, so that we can keep the presentation material current with all of the latest kind of demonstration of the financing at work. So hopefully over the next 24 hours that I'll get additional information on that front, and then basically over the weekend update the slides, update the recording, and first couple of days of next week, that is the target. So to get that to you all pretty quickly.
Sounds great. I believe someone posed a question on chat regarding premature cancellations. Like if somebody, obviously we know that the 12-month option or whatever option, the client does not have access to their funds, but if for some reason there's an emergency and they need to cancel, what's the penalty?
Right. I do see that question. So currently there is no premature redemption clause in the MOIs, in the loan contracts, for redemption prior to the maturity of the loan. So for none of the loan options is that can a client have that option to redeem their principal prior to the maturity? That's part of the balancing act. That's part of being able to GLC giving these returns to the lenders. The trade-off is GLC needs to know that they can have this access to this principal for the full time, even if that were with some kind of surrender charge to it. It's just would introduce too much volatility. So in those cases, if that is a concern for the client to any degree, obviously we're assuming that the suitability conversation is already had and it's suitable in general. But if dispositionally the client has a personality that is concerned on that level and wants to hedge that, then generally speaking, the recommendation would be that's part of why we design the shorter duration options, so they can position themselves in a 12-month, have just a 1-year window of commitment, and they're getting active cash flow during that time. So current iteration of the loan options, well, both now and then the new set that are coming in, there is no redemption prior to maturity. But we do have the different durations, which is essentially designed to kind of address that ability for a client to hedge in that way.
Got it. So that's why I think it's important that agents make sure that you do your suitability work. In other words, make sure that the clients are not putting 100% of their assets into these options. They must have a cushion. They must have some reserves in case to satisfy an emergency in that case, because we know now that there's no redemption clause, meaning that they will not have access to the money. So it's your job to make sure that you go through a suitability process and make sure that the client does have a cushion or some reserves on the side in case of an emergency.
Absolutely.
And there's another question. Please go over renewal protocols by Erica.
Okay, yes. So we talked about renewal percentages, but the kind of renewal protocol. So in anticipation of renewal, about roughly 2 months in advance of the maturity of the contract, the current clients will receive via email a notice, simply, and that's just a notice of upcoming maturity. So that is kind of just an automatic part of the process to, regardless of what the client intends to do, just to remind and inform the client that, hey, yeah, in case you had forgotten, your contract's coming up for maturity, and basically just laying out that you have the option to terminate the contract and get your principal back, or renew into whichever option that you like, and that's designed to further and promote the conversation between you as the agent and the client about what they would like to do and what's appropriate for them. When it comes to the protocol for renewals, actually, let me pull up my other slides here. When it comes to renewals, I want to make sure that I'm being completely accurate on this part. Actually, if you can hold, because we're here to get the full clarity. Rhiannon is in the other room, and I'm going to double check with her to make sure that whether we have a separate link for renewals or it will be the same intake links as the traditional intake links. So if you can hold for 30 seconds, I will have that full clarity, because I want to give you the complete accurate answer. So I will be right back and make sure I have that answer for you.
Sounds good. While he does that, some of us already know that Luke, or that Rhiannon, married Luke. In other words, Rhiannon Houston, who's our main processor or the head processor of Sanders Family Office, is now Rhiannon Sanders, because now she's married to Luke. Some of you probably did not know that. So when you see her name or her email still shows as Rhiannon Houston at Sanders Family Office, something like that, even though now she is Rhiannon Sanders. I thought I mentioned that because I noticed the other day when I looked at her email that it still shows Rhiannon Houston, but she is now Rhiannon Sanders.
Indeed, she's been assimilated into the family office, into the family itself. So we kept the same email. We don't want to have to have everybody change it over who had that in the records, but I appreciate that clarity there. And I spoke with Rhiannon, just like you said, Ricardo, because Rhiannon's heads up more so than I do, although we all overlap. the processing side of things. Yes, so what had thrown me is that I did not see the link when I was reviewing that page on the intake links, but that will be included shortly as well in the intake link section. Is just like we saw that new wire sent link to put in at the close of that contract when the client funds. There will also be a separate link for renewals, and that's just kind of more or less to help us categorize right out of the gates that this is, renewing funds rather than new money coming in. So the protocol will be other than that, then using the renewal intake link as opposed to a normal cash or qualified intake link. The process will be otherwise very similar to what you would be used to. You just pull up that digital intake link and put in the client's information, except this time in the system it will automatically be categorized as a renewal. Other than that, logistically, if it is cash, then the cash works the most streamlined, because that basically the cash doesn't need to be returned to the client. It just, if they're renewing, it just rolls over into the new contract. So there's no lag period, or there's no anything else when it comes to their interest payments and so on and so forth. So if they're in a quarterly paying option and they're renewing, then that would basically just kind of pick up into that new structure right away. So they get their last quarterly interest payment, the contract matures, and then maybe they're renewing into the same option. Then that's just going to pick up the same interest payment on the next quarter, assuming they're renewing with the same money. So there's no lag with cash. With qualified funds, even if it is a renewal and this is a compliance matter, Provident Trust Group, and I believe most of the other custodians as well, requires that the funds the principal be returned into that self-directed IRA, regardless of the client's intent to renew or not. So in that case, what has to happen is the principal has to be returned, and then it would be very quickly a new direction of investment submitted, and then the funds sent back out. But in that case, because the money has to bounce back, and that's basically Provident as the self-directed custodian, making sure that the borrower GLC is able to repay these contracts as part of that structure, and their ability to take on that asset under their as a qualified custodian. That's the reason for that. So in this case, the funds have to go back, and then they get sent right back to GLC. Seems kind of superfluous, but there is a reason for it. So in that case, there will be a little bit of a lag, even though it is a renewal. But that's just the dynamic for how qualified funds work. So cash, it just picks up immediately. The maturity date of the one contract will be the effective date of the next contract. But with the qualified funds, there's a little bit of that lag period built in. And so it just depends on how quickly that can be resent out and funded again to get the next contract up and running.
Before we open the floor to anyone to pose or ask their questions, I want to address the fact that I remember Rhiannon mentioned that you guys are moving from DocuSign to Dropbox. Is that what it is?
It's Dropbox Sign, I think, is what it's called. But it's, yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? Is it the same? Does it look different?
We've been able to kind of see the functionality of it and everything else as compared to what we've been used to with DocuSign, and the functionality is, there's a lot of overlap and quite a bit of similarity. Again, Rhiannon can speak to any of the particulars more than I do, but I know it's basically the same kind of process. The client receives, their MOI and their W-9 via email. The template should look fairly similar. And sorry, I'll make sure everybody's muted here. The client should will receive that email for signature, and it should look fairly similar to what we as agents may have already seen with DocuSign, and go through kind of a similar process. There's only been one instance where I know an agent has had a difficulty opening that I'm not, and we're still exploring the solution to that. Otherwise, it's been pretty seamless. We haven't heard anything from the field, from the agents, as far as difficulties with how that works. And yeah, again, Rihanna can speak to that. So if we like, I can perhaps bring her in the room briefly to touch on that with a greater clarity. But it should look very similar to what we've had before.
All right, that's good enough. Let's open up the floor for anyone that has any specific question. Anyone either can raise your hand on the screen, or you can unmute yourself and just openly ask Luke. I don't see any more questions on the chat, so I'm hoping that if someone has any specific question, you can go ahead and ask now.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes open on chat as well. A question about copy of the slides. Yes, I mean, so through the Google Drive, which again, if you don't have access already, then just for any agent who doesn't, then just kind of speak with your upline. We'll make sure that we get you the link for that. But the Google Drive has everything as relates to everything you need to be able to summarize and present and bring to the table the GLC opportunity. And so that includes the slide deck or the PowerPoint, and as well as the recording. And so that is available to everybody, but the updated ones will again be coming. The target for that is early next week. So yes, you'll definitely be able to have access at any point in time to the copies of those slides, and that's always the best way to do it is even if I always like to recommend, even if you can always download these things too, but always just check back at the Google Drive routinely, because sometimes when you download, and maybe you might have downloaded a slightly outdated version of the presentation, and you might still be using that. And even if there's small changes, it's always important to stay current. So I just recommend every so often kind of clearing that, going back to the Google Drive and making sure that what you're using is the most current material.
Look, is it viable for you to put up the Google Drive link on the chat and everyone can just copy it for now?
Yes, I can do that with this caveat. So we're all agents here, and we're all on the honor system I'm putting you on. So the design for this is to be an internal set of resources. So this is not something that you would. There's really no conceivable scenario where you would just sort of shotgun blast this material to a client by just sending them the link. The part of the reason for that is that there's so much to sift through, and there's a lot of supporting kind of documents, and that's where we have the intake links. And so to do that would be to introduce a lot of potential for confusion and things like that. So this is for you as the agents. And so I'll put it in the chat right now, but just with the note that please avoid sending this link to a client. If you want to send a particular resource or the recording or something, that's of course fine. But the entire link at large is designed for the agents as a resource from which you kind of select your materials and then curate that and then present that to a client. So this link here that is up in the chat will be the link to the Google Drive, and the settings should be still currently that, and yes, anyone with the link can view. So simply with that link, you won't need to get manual permission from me in order to see these materials. And again, this will include the loan documents, the governing documents, some supplemental materials like frequently asked questions, the recording link. We have a couple of videos that are actually videos of on-site of that Jakarta asset being developed. I think these are actually from June. So there's more progress been made to date, and perhaps soon we'll have a video of the full and complete site and a walkthrough of that to put on. So that's the kind of nice thing to just check back with the Drive, because sometimes we'll pepper that in there, and there's other links to, or other documents, even a document that has a bunch of links to articles about finance and the economic kind of conditions in Indonesia, because that's a big component of the GLC portfolio. So a lot of extra resources there for everybody,
including a PowerPoint presentation, of course.
Yes, absolutely. And so the one you'll see now will be the current loan options, and probably what we will do is have them both running side by side, both sets, until November 1st, because we know that they'll be kind of closing out certain clients with the current options before that date, but kind of in anticipation by November 1st, then the old presentation slides will be completely gone.
Anybody else has any other concern or questions regarding GLC?
Okay, someone says it opened only the links document, not the whole drive. So let me double check, because if sometimes, that can't happen. If I selected and I hovered just on the links, which I was looking at before, but I didn't click off that, then it would only give you access to the links, which we want you to have access to everything. So let me try this one more time. Appreciate that correction on the go. So let's see here. Into chat one more time. All right, and someone can someone can live check that as well to make sure that that will pull up the entire page of resources, and maybe just give a little thumbs up in the chat, or a yes, it does. Okay, yes, good one. Right, awesome, that's good. Thanks for that correction.
Perfect.
Well, great. Well, I do not see any other questions in chat. And again, any questions that do come up at any point in time, then there's always the open door of communication. Just kind of speak with your upline, filter those questions up, and if they can't be answered immediately and directly, then we'll as a family office step in and make sure that you have everything that you need. But I just want to say very grateful for all of you. It's a very true statement that all of what we do is kind of like an iceberg. And what we see of each other, what we as a family office see of what most all of you are doing, is only this little tiny tip of your whole experience, and all the work and the due diligence and the suitability and everything that you're doing with your clients. That for us is behind the scenes. So I just want to thank all of you, and I want all of you to know that you have our full support, and we are ourselves doing quite a bit behind the scenes to support you, to make sure that what we're doing here in providing something that is unique, that is a kind of alternative investment that people just do not traditionally have access to really empower individuals and families, not just as a mantra, but in a real sense of the word. That is what we do. That is why we are here. That is a major reason of why we put all this work in, is to lift up other people and to edify people. So know that, and as we continue to move forward, we are always working on keeping things streamlined and keeping things efficient. So if something is off or is amiss, we are working on it, and we continue to work on that. And that's our go ahead pledge, for all of you. So thank you, and look forward to calls like this. Look forward to the next one. But until then, keep up the great work, and we'll be supporting you as
Luke, before
yes.
you go, I have a quick question in regards to it. Will there ever be a brochure that will be coming that can be shared or promoted, or a landing page or something that we can send prospects to?
There is a website for GLC that can be forwarded to a client. It is it's presentable. It kind of summarizes GLC as a real estate investment company and so forth. It does not have any of the summaries of the loan options or any of the documents there for itself. Again, this is kind of this is not, GLC does not market this to the public. This is a proprietary offering that is available through Sanders Family Office as exclusive source of financing, and through us and our relationships with all of you. That is our kind of exclusive window to the audiences that we have. It's through this personal relationships and connections with our family office. So that's sort of, you know, the caveat there. So as long as the client knows what they won't be seeing, and knows that they'll be able to, you know, receive materials and stuff from you, the agent, and that expectation is there, then that's, you know, of course, fine as well. So that is the website is pull it up here, grandlandcorp.com. And so we can just put that in the chat. So, you know, if you want to use that as kind of just part of the familiarization process with prospective client, then that is fantastic. As far as brochure and other materials, that's something that we may be able to put something together along those lines. I mean, of course, you know, the slide deck can work a little bit like that, but you know, having a brochure, a couple pager that would summarize the offering is a value add. So, you know, appreciate you bringing that up, Milton. And so I'll just have an internal conversation and see if, you know, we can kind of have that as an additional supplement, just to give a 1 or 2 page that kind of condenses the slides, condenses, you know, what you would hear on the recording, and makes it a little more accessible.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Luke. Thank you for keeping the meeting under an hour as you promised, and very, very great information. I thought it was important for everyone to listen in and hear it for themselves, because obviously we were getting accustomed to the 3 different options. Now we're going to have 5 options, and we can't wait for you to have the educational video presentation ready, the PowerPoint and everything else that will be included in the Google Drive or updated in the Google Drive. So once again, thank you, Luke, for your time, and we'll give our thanks to Rhiannon as well, because she's been doing a phenomenal job, and of course to Megan, and I know some of us here have not met Margaret personally, the director, nor Mel, but hopefully in the future they can all get to see the entire Sanders Family Office and the operation.
We'd look forward to that very, very much. It's one of the best parts of what we do, is being able to meet in person and to strengthen and build up these kinds of relationships. We like that quite a bit. So thank you, Ricardo. Thank all of you on the call, and we'll be following up soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Keep up the momentum.
That is right. Thank you, Luke. Good night.
Good night.
See you, Luke.